Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are in the film portion of our channel and I'm going to be tier ranking all 24 films that I watched this summer, and that would be June through August. Okay, so the tier list is right here. I created 5 categories. As you can see, I'll go from bottom to top here. Trash, obviously this movie sucks, I want to throw it in a dumpster. Background, I was Mike Light in the background. And I noticed that they leave out the A, and I tried editing that, but unfortunately I can't. I think it's because of the length here. They want to keep these all the same length. And then mid, basically just reviews. Not good, not bad. It's just in the middle. And everyone knows what mid means. And then good, right here, we have good, and it's pretty self-explanatory as well. And then elite is just that S tier, that next level of film. And so for these that I'm going to be going over today, there's not going to be a ton of films that are in the elite category. I didn't go through all of them beforehand and kind of rehearse. I'm just going to wing it with you guys, but elite is going to be a smaller category because these are just films I watched this summer, not like all-time favorite films or anything. Starting off, we have 42. This is a very good film about Jackie Robinson and his emergence into the big leagues. It explores Branch Rickey and a lot about how he, the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time, was kind of the guy to make it happen. Um, and obviously, if you don't know a lot about baseball, there was a color barrier at the time, and Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier and was the first black or African player in the majors. So that was a big deal. Obviously, this is a cool movie as a baseball fan to watch. It definitely doesn't go in the mid category, and it definitely wouldn't go in elite either. So we're gonna slide into good. Magnet of Doom. This is one that I remember a little less well. Kind of watched it on the couch one night, but this is a good French movie about a French boxer who kind of fails. It's got Alain Delon in it, so I always love that. And he goes to America. He's kind of on the road and is staying with this rich banker, and they kind of have this like relationship where they're fighting all the time. We won't call this background or trash by any means. It's a good movie. It was on the Criterion Channel, but we'll definitely put it in the mid category. The Northman, and this is a movie that a lot of people love. This is a movie that I did not love as much, but I just didn't get into it. It wasn't my thing. But I would say it was a good movie, and I definitely think that the cinematography is very beautiful. The acting is pretty good, and I get what they were trying to do with the appeal to all the Nordic legends and really to like fighting for like your family, which is a good thing. But again, this didn't stick out to me. Didn't really like catch my fancy in any specific way, so I'll put it in good. Battle for the Planet of the Apes. This is the 1972, 1973, one of the two. But it's really funny how they have like masks on instead of CGI. Even it's just like costume design, and in that way, it makes it feel a little bit more like a stage play. And there's not really anything special about the visuals, but I will say the story was really enjoyable, and and I think it had some good points to it. So I'm gonna put this in the good category. Before Midnight. These are out of order, so let me rearrange these real quick. Alright, I'm back. I got them rearranged in the order that the trilogy came. I watched this trilogy pretty much back to back, and they're all pretty good movies. These are movies, and this is what sticks out when you're watching the first one. It sticks out because you're looking at this and you're like, how did this director make a movie with with just dialogue between two people, and that's pretty much the whole movie is dialogue between these two people who meet on a train. The guy is an American traveling in Europe, and she's a French girl, and he asks her to get off the train and spend the night with him before. before he has to leave on his plane for America. And they kind of fall in love, have a good time, and it's a pretty feel good movie. It didn't do anything particularly like this to deserve an elite category ranking, but again, the acting is pretty good. Two very attractive people, and very well written movie. So we're putting it in a good category, which is kind of starting to get a little crowded. Before Sunset, it's going to be the same thing, except for me, this is going to make it into Elite because this is just an incredible film from start to finish. What happens in the film is that basically we start off with these two people. They meet 10 years later, the same people in a bookstore in Paris. He wrote a book about their encounter 10 years earlier and is on a book tour. And they meet and they spend the day together, and before he has to leave. I'm not going to spoil anything that happens in it, but very incredible. And the scene at the end is just one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen outside of like Paris, Texas. So again, this slips into the elite category, although the Before Midnight is also not going to slip into elite. This follows those same two people. A few years later, they have a couple daughters, and it kind of just is a more realistic movie, which I liked, and there's a big fight scene in it. But again, just slipping into good. With Bodies, I saw this movie with my brother in New York City, in a theater in the East Village. I really had wanted to see this movie when I saw the trailer when it came out, and I was excited to go see it. We went to the theater. We were expecting to go see an anime movie, and then I saw the poster for this, and my brother was very gracious to be able to change movies to go see this with me, and it was a good experience. It's a hilarious movie about a group of teenagers who are stranded in the middle of a hurricane at one of their parents' house. The parents aren't there, and somebody dies, and then it's kind of like this whole murder mystery, kind of chaos thing going around in the middle of a hurricane. Very good movie, very good soundtrack, and really just one of the funniest, kind of like comedy horror movies you'll ever see. And for that reason, I was thinking about putting this in good, but seeing as we have a lot in good already, I'm going to slip it into elite. It is a very good movie, and I gave this 4.5 stars. So again, it deserves to be in that elite category. Boogie Nights. This is a classic, but I didn't enjoy it in the slightest. And I think there may be some good things there. Um, just about how everyone wants to be a star. It's about a kid who's working in a nightclub and then goes into the porn industry. I think that, obviously the porn industry is a dark place in many ways, but I don't necessarily think that the way they portrayed it is accurate. But I don't think it was meant to be accurate. I think it was meant to be a comedy, in some sense. And yeah, it's not too comedic for me, and it's not doing it. So I'm gonna say that this is not bad enough to be trash, but it's not good enough to be mid. So we're slipping in this on in the background at some point, which really is not a fun thing to be watching in the background. So you gotta make sure your parents aren't over when you're watching this in the background. Um, Crimes of the Future I saw at a theater in Santan Village with my best friend Nathan, and this is a really deep film about how humans evolve in the future, the way that our bodies to evolve to meet with the demands of like a changing world. And basically what's happening is there's this exhibitionist who is cutting himself open in front of people. He like grows organs and then cuts them out in front of people like as like an art show. And also there's a lot going on with people like who are eating like kind of radioactive bars and their bodies have evolved to eat them. A lot of really interesting concepts in this movie, but I don't think it was perfectly done. and and so I'm gonna slide it into the mid tier. I don't think that this was anything special for me, but again, it was a pretty interesting movie. Field of Dreams. I'm surprised it took me so long to watch this movie because I'm such a huge baseball fan. This is a really good baseball film, just about the classics and about a guy who has faith and builds a field on his farm, and Shoeless Joe Jackson comes and plays. So really iconic movie, that for the iconicism of it and for my love of baseball, I have to slide it up here into elite. This movie's trash. Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I wish I could forget this movie. Hereditary. This is a really scary movie, as you can probably tell from the cover, and obviously this came out several years ago. I'm a huge fan of Midsommar. I was not as huge of a fan of this film, but I do think it was doing some really good things here. And though I might not have enjoyed it, I do think it was a good film, so we're gonna slide it up here into the good category. Hostel. Watch this film again with Nathan just when we were hanging out. This is probably deserves to be playing in the background, having some people get chopped up. How Do You Know? This is a rom-com I just threw on one night. And if you watch the movie, you're going to see a lot of phone calls. That's the one thing I can remember very well about this film is that basically in every other scene there's a phone call. So how do you know how many phone calls are in this film? Watch the movie and probably try and count how many times somebody is talking on the phone in the movie. Other than that, Reese Witherspoon, Owen Wilson, like decent cast, but like not a lot going on here. So we're gonna say this is background as well, not even mid. Les Sucres Les Rouges. This is nothing but an elite film. This is one of the films of Jean-Pierre Melville, as un film de Jean-Pierre Melville. Les Cercles Rouges stands for the Red Circle, and it's starring Alain Delon. I love Alain Delon. Basically, it's a very slow-moving heist film, but I really enjoy how slow it moves. In the beginning, you're thinking like, what is going on here? But like they really set it up perfectly, and it all kind of is like that slow burn, melodramatic French film from like the 70s or whatever. Really beautiful film, with a really really good, really beautiful. I wouldn't call it beautiful. I don't know what the right words for that is, but it's got a good soundtrack. So I would definitely recommend watching Le Cercle Rouge. This is definitely an elite film. Miss Congeniality 2. Okay, I watched this with Elena, and I don't know how harsh I want to be on this film. Yes, horrible representation of the FBI. I know it's not anything like that, but I also know it's a comedy, and that's not what they were going for. But again, I'm not going to be very nice to Miss Congeniality. This is going in the trash category for sure. You can hang down there with Sarah Marshall. Mr. Klein. This is a really good movie about um, someone who's selling art, an art dealer in Paris during the Nazi occupation, when obviously there's a lot of racism against Jews, and he's not Jewish, or at least you don't think he's Jewish from the film, but he begins to be suspected. It's suspected that he's a Jew, and his identity is kind of mixed up with someone else. So he has to try and figure this out, and he kind of experiences that uh, the anti-Semitism, even though it's not necessarily in his heritage, but he kind of has to go through all of that. And it's just a really good film about the French occupation in that time. So for that reason, we're going into the good category. Rumor has it Jennifer Aniston and who was the other guy? Mark Ruffalo. Great actors. I love those actors. But rumor has it this was a mid film. And really, like, this film tried to rip off The Graduate, which, like, great idea. I actually was excited to see it because of that. But since I'm such a huge fan of The Graduate, but I think it did a bad job at it. And was very predictable. It didn't have a lot of artistic value to it. So, again, a very mid film. Smooth talk. How even do we want to be here? You know, when I first watched this, I thought this was like maybe a pretty good film, and I do think there's some beautiful stuff to it. Laura Dern, I love a lot of her performances, especially in like Blue Velvet. But basically, this is about a film about a girl like who's underage or at least like just turned 18, who is trying to like go to clubs. She's still living at home with her parents, and she kind of has this like abusive, not necessarily abusive because it's never a relationship, but it's a relationship with an older guy who's trying to get to her and she's just not interested. And the guy kind of clings on to her. And so I think it's an interesting film. Again, I don't necessarily think it was particularly convincing or engaging in the way it was done. So for that reason, we're going to put it in mid, but it belongs like slightly ahead of these other films. The Duff. When I think of this film, I think that they were trying to do something, and they did what they wanted to do really pretty well. So I'll give that to them. And I think like the way the title cards are and the way it's cringy and everything, I think it's pretty purposeful. So I actually like this and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Um, but in the end, it's pretty much just a high school drama, and it can't ascend too much beyond that. So we're gonna put it in the mid category. Ticket of No Return. Um, I probably would not return to this movie. It's definitely got some beauty to it, but I would say watch this in the background, and it'd be a perfect background watch because there's not a lot of plot to it, and again, though I did fall asleep in the middle of it, I think that was kind of the part of the point of it is that it's boring enough to be in the background. The Scarlet Empress. I saw this movie in a art house theater in right next to Harvard with Caleb on my vacation. It's by Joseph von Sternberg. It's about a Russian empress. I can't remember the name of the actual person at this time. And obviously she became was it Catherine the Great? Yes, Catherine the Great. Sorry, Catherine the Great. And it's kind of like a beautiful black and white film. But it didn't do like too much for me. I think it definitely is ahead of all these films that are right here. So for that reason, we put it in the good category. And finally, we come to Yes, God, Yes with Natalia Dyer. This film is like trying to make fun of, trying to make a point of how bad purity culture is and how bad it can be just like growing up in a conservative environment, specifically this environment being a Catholic environment, and she's a schoolgirl who has a chat on AOL, very old technology, um, and kind of has, you know, she doesn't even know what she's talking about, but kind of has some. She's very innocent. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she has like cyber sex with this one guy. Kind of, he's saying some dirty stuff to her, and it's anonymous chat. But again, this movie didn't really do much for me, and I think that although I know like it's definitely very accurate to the way that those days are, to the way that those schools are, and I think that it was a little too harsh on Catholicism and Christianity in general, um, and that's kind of overdid the way that those people would act. So we're gonna put this in the background category, although it's actually very close to being trash. So there it is, my final rankings for the summer 2022 watches. And I want to know what you guys watched this summer and what are some things that you are excited for, upcoming movies for the fall, because I definitely want to go see those in the theaters. And so drop a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and you like the content, and drop that comment down below. Thank you for watching.